Holy crap, guys. Nintendo just announced a Super NES Classic Edition, which, I don't know about you, that took me by surprise. Let's just get to our raw reactions here. Roger's Base, I know, oh, I should mention, we have Roger's Base here, as well as Colin McIsaac from Gamnesia. Roger, what did you think when you woke up and saw this news?
Star Fox 2. I cannot believe that Star Fox 2 is trending in 2017. This is truly the year of revivals for 90s properties. I am so unbelievably happy about this. I still can't even process the fact that we're getting Star Fox 2 before getting Mother 3 in North America. This is just blowing my mind.
Oh, shut up, Roger. Oh, man, don't remind me. Yeah, Star Fox 2 is really, really cool. Great choice by Nintendo. Also cool that they got Yoshi's Island in there, which hasn't been redistributed on any Virtual Console systems yet in the Super Nintendo form. So that's a really cool thing there. But, you know, the rumors have been circling around for a little bit. I think it was only a matter of time before we heard about the Super Nintendo
for
Mini.
Sure.
Sure.
But, you know.
This soon, though?
Good thing to wake up to.
Yeah, I mean, did you expect it to be announced midsummer with a late September release date?
No, in fact, when I heard the rumors, and I thoroughly thought it was going to be November. I thought this was going to be like something that comes out for Black Friday.
Right.
I thought it was going to mimic the NES Classic timeline, pretty much one for one. Announcement in July, release a little bit before Black Friday.
The context now for why they stopped the NES Classic makes so much more sense. It's like, okay, this actually does make sense now. They are just straight up going to the SNES Classic. I wonder if because like they're like, hey, we can charge a premium for this, we can make more money on the SNES Classic than we ever were on the NES Classic.
Hey, N64 Classic next year, let's go.
I mean, that's a whole different discussion, but I'm sure we'll touch on that too here. But hey, I want to circle back real quick. Freaking Star Fox 2.
Oh my God.
I never saw that coming. Roger, as you mentioned, the fact that that is trending, I mean, I don't think I ever expected to see Star Fox trending, period, again. Seeing Star Fox 2 of all games alone is amazing to me, because this is a game I've literally wanted for decades. Literally decades. I know, Colin, you were still a baby when this game was first talked about. Essentially,
was I even alive?
I don't know. Yeah, you may not have been. Right, damn.
I think I was like 4 when the game first, because it was 94 was when it was first announced, right? So I would have been 4 years old.
Right. So I've been wanting this game forever, and I never thought we would ever see it. I mean, there's been ROMs slinging around, incomplete ROMs, but this is apparently is the real deal. And I think Roger, you were telling me that, was it Dylan Cuthbert had the final version of the game, or?
Yeah, so it came out in a Beta 64 story, I think last year, that Dylan Cuthbert is one of the few, like the director of the game, and somebody who's now a producer over at Q Games. Like, he apparently owns the final build of Star Fox 2 and has had it, like the release build of Star Fox 2. And it's never circulated online, obviously. The one that's online is like the final beta. But no one has ever had their hands on the final release. So I'm really, like, waiting to see what Dylan Cuthbert's reaction to this news is going to be, or if he had any involvement in this whatsoever. Because I know him and Miyamoto are, like, super tight, so I really want to know, like, what he thinks of the Star Fox 2 news. I followed him on Twitter today. I didn't even know he had a Twitter, but I found him on Twitter specifically to find his reaction today.
I can't wait. I mean, I didn't even realize that there was a finished version of the game. My understanding was that they were all in various states of incomplete. You know, like, I think it was mostly done, but there were some missing pieces, but I didn't realize there actually was a finished version of it. Which makes this whole thing both, you know, more tragic than it even seemed initially. Like, this was a finished product. But at the same time, it's kind of cool. Like, in a way, this might be the most attention Star Fox 2 have ever gotten, you know, than if it had actually released when it was supposed to.
And I feel pretty confident that this game is going to be the best Star Fox game released in years.
Ouch. And it's funny, too, because Star Fox Zero actually did take a few pages from Star Fox 2's book, such as with having the walker form, which is first invented for this game.
Right. So, and actually, another thing that was in Star Fox 2 that was added to later Star Fox games was Star Fox Command had that, like, real-world map, real-time map, where you, like, move your R-Wing around. And that was something that actually originally came from Star Fox 2. So it's really cool that we're actually going to be able to relive and play through this game. Not relive, because none of us ever played it before, but to be actually able to play this game with all this functionality and all these features that were actually added to later games in the series. So we'll be able to see where they came from.
Right.
Yeah.
And that map was one of my favorite features by far in Command, so I'm really excited to see how it looks in the sort of the more classic aesthetic. You know, I'm interested in seeing these new characters that are coming out with a Star Fox team, so I'm very excited for this.
Is there like a lamb or a sheep or something from my memory? I think
there's like a dog.
They are.
I think there's a dog and a lynx. There's a lynx too.
Okay, there we go. Yeah,
they're all cartoon space animals.
Yeah,
it's hard to Classify.
Are they canon now? Like, where's this fit into the canon? They've already rebooted the original game like 3 times now, so...
Well, the original game is apparently, like, Star Fox Zero is supposed to be, like, a full reboot of the franchise, right? So, like, these characters could potentially be in whatever sequel would ever come out from Star Fox Zero. I don't know if we're ever going to get a sequel to Star Fox Zero, and I actually don't want one, but, but if we do end up getting one in that universe, they could include these characters now.
It is kind of weird to think that this is actually the only official sequel to Star Fox. Every game since was either a reimagining of the game or a sequel to those reimaginings. This is the only proper sequel the original Star Fox has ever had. And I kind of love that we're finally getting that, because the original Star Fox holds a special place in my heart. Like, that game was just very pure. It had some great gameplay. Granted, it ran at like 10 frames per second, but it was just a really great game. Now, in a more broader point too, another reason why it's surprising to see Star Fox 2 here is because it's of course a Super FX chip game. And up until this point, we have not seen a single Super FX chip game re-released by Nintendo in any capacity. So we've never had Yoshi's Island re-released, well, besides on GBA, which didn't, I mean, they remade that game for GBA. But we've never seen Star Fox either since. So this is pretty surprising to me. So for multiple reasons, and I just can't wait. Like, and I guess it kind of touches on an even broader point here. What do you think of the lineup of games here? We have 21 games as compared to the NES Classic's 30 games. I'm saying really no filler here. All 21 games here are games I would want to play.
You mean the NES Classic had filler, and that this one does not?
I'm sorry.
You said NES.
Right.
Okay, yeah. I was just clarifying, because I'm like, this lineup's amazing.
Right, no, I agree with that. Not a single one of these has aged poorly. Not a single one of these was bad from the beginning. But I wouldn't have minded some filler. I think we can agree it would have been cool to get stuff like, Andre's Stunt Race FX, ActRaiser, Tetris Attack.
No, I'm gonna stop you there. How dare you call Stunt Race FX filler? How dare you call that game filler?
All right.
That is a glaring omission. So
the only two that I'm kind of shocked aren't on here are Pilot Wings. I'm kind of surprised to not see Pilot Wings on here, the original Pilot Wings. And I'm also surprised to not see Donkey Kong Country 2. Because I know a lot of people who like that game more than the original Donkey Kong and have like a lot more nostalgia for that title.
Yeah, and I'm one of them. I was going to say that and 3, actually. There's no real reason that they shouldn't have included games like those. Because I do think the price is a little steep. $80 is a big commitment. And so, I don't see why they wouldn't have fluffed up the lineup of games a little bit more just to sort of justify that price. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that the price is not a fair value for what you're getting in the package. I think that's, it's a totally reasonable number to put on this system. The 2 controllers, the 21 games in here, especially considering so many of them are licensed from other developers.
Right.
With a commitment that big from a bank account, it would have been nice to get more than 21.
And I was going to say really quick, too, is I know you already mentioned this, Andre, but I do think it is worth noting again. Like, this includes 2 never reissued Super FX games.
Right.
One that was never released before, plus all these other amazing titles like Super Metroid and then Final Fantasy III, which is actually Final Fantasy VI, which is actually one of the best games in the franchise. So they've thrown a lot of really good things in here. And, like, for me, I owned an NES Classic, but I, rarely played it. I feel like this is a much more valuable package for what you're paying for.
I totally agree, and there's also the fact, too, that it comes with 2 controllers as well.
Yeah.
So that also saves you another $10, and also the hassle of finding a second controller. So Colin, I totally get where you're coming from, though. Like, I mean, obviously, I would prefer more games too. I mean, who wouldn't ever want more games? And I guess when compared to the NES Classic, it does come up a little bit short. Although I do want to mention the fact this system has Kirby Superstar, which itself had 9 games. Add that to the 21, we're up to almost 30 again. So
oh boy!
All right.
I have to.
All right.
So.
I don't know if I'd count Spring Breeze as complete, but we'll see.
That game is like 5 minutes long. But I was going to say, though, so my reaction is a little bit different here, or a little bit interesting, I think. Because when they announced the NES Classic, I'm like, okay, that price isn't unfair. But I thought it felt a little bit more expensive than would have been ideal. Like, I thought maybe a $50 price point would be perfect for it. But hey, I was wrong. That system sold like crazy.
Right.
But then
they just didn't make very many.
That's true too. But when I saw the price point for this, I'm like, that is completely fair. And I partially because Star Fox 2 again. Like, I mean, so I know I'm kind of weird here. I would actually pay $80 alone for just that game, just to play that game.
Dude, I'm right there with you.
Right?
You're not alone. Yeah.
So the other 20 games are just gravy on top of that. And consider this. Like, Super Nintendo games are often pretty expensive. We're basically paying for the cost of one Super Nintendo game. We're getting 21 of them in total. So granted, they wouldn't be worth that much now, Star Fox 2 accepted maybe.
Right, I mean, even if you consider the value of the Super Nintendo games that they sell on the Virtual Console, if you do the math, each one of these is about $4, which game by game is still less than we've ever paid for Super Nintendo reissues.
Oh, yeah,
so that's still great.
But this is something that I think a lot of us are overlooking, and that obviously because it's become so prevalent in the past couple years, but having Earthbound in here is actually huge. Like, I remember the days of begging for Earthbound on Wii Virtual Console, and we eventually got it on Wii U Virtual Console, and now it's even on the new 3DS Virtual Console. But I think that is awesome that is also in this package, because for a really long time, that game was extraordinarily difficult to find.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not just Earthbound, we've got Final Fantasy 3, well, 6, however you want to call it. We've got Secret of Mana, we've got Super Mario RPG. Like, there are some really great RPGs here, some of the best ever made, that are going to keep you hooked for a really long time. So, gameplay-wise, that is a good value.
There's a ton of value here. Then you have fighting, then you have, Street Fighter for your competitive fighting.
You've got lots of great multiplayer games here.
Yeah, you absolutely. That even includes Kirby Superstar, which is co-op almost the entire way through.
And Kirby Dream Course, like, who would have expected that to be on here? That is
I can't believe we haven't talked about this yet. That is one of my favorite games on the Super Nintendo.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of the few games here I've never played at all, except maybe I played like a demo. Do you remember when hotel rooms used to have these Super Nintendos built into the TV?
Oh yeah,
I do.
I would rent it for like 10 minutes and played it there. But I've never played my way through that game, so I would love to be able to sit down with it and really experience that game. But I've heard it's pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm curious, I want to ask you guys, how many of these games do you actually already own?
I'm glad you brought that up, Roger.
I don't know.
I own 13 of them.
13, so I own 10.
I don't know how many I own compared to having played, but I've played 15 of them.
Okay. Yeah, because I have exactly half, if you're not including Star Fox 2.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's actually pretty cool, because I'm going to be getting 10 games that I've never actually owned before.
I'm a little bit jealous of that, yeah, because I own the majority of these games. But again, you throw Star Fox 2 in there, it doesn't matter what else is in there.
Right.
So here's a question related to that. What games are you most excited to play in this package? And I guess more specifically, I'm asking which games haven't you played that you're looking forward to that are here? Or they don't own already, I should say.
Well, for me, Mario RPG is a big one.
You haven't played that?
What?
No, I've actually never played through Mario RPG all the way.
I'm so jealous!
I know. I'm like really
I shouldn't
excited.
be this loud about it. I haven't played Final Fantasy 3 yet, so.
Oh, wow. Now I'm jealous of you.
Dang. Alright, so I've touched on most of the big ones, or I played most of the big ones here, but I've never really gotten into Super Castlevania 4 or Super Ghouls and Ghosts. So I'm actually really excited to go back and be able to experience those, but I know they are both, like, stellar titles.
Yep, same here. The last one I think that I haven't played... Oh, there's Contra 3, and then there's Secret of Mana.
Okay.
So that completes my unplayed list.
Oh, you know what? I just realized there is one problem here at Secret of Mana. That was a 3-player game originally, and only 2 controller ports.
How did you play with 3 players on a Super Nintendo?
See, the multi-tap.
What?
These
are new words to me.
You plugged into the second controller port, it gave you 4 additional controller ports, and you could play games like Bomberman as well.
Yeah.
How have I never heard of this?
Again, you were like a baby
why.
when this was all happening. So I'm actually impressed you own as many games as you do, considering the Super Nintendo era was before your time, really. So.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, you mentioned the multiplayer thing, and yeah, I don't really know how Secret of Mana is going to work perfectly, but one thing I am interested in is I know Star Fox 2 had a 2-player dogfight multiplayer mode. I'm curious if the final build of the game actually includes that as well, like if that was actually ready for release. Because if that's the case, that's going to be something really fun to play for the first time with friends.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. But that actually gets us into another good question, which is how are the controllers actually going to work? First of all, the first thing on my mind was how long are these cords going to be?
Oh my god!
Because we all remember the 2-foot NES controller cords with the NES Mini, and that was not so great. I would hope that Nintendo has heard the fans on this and is making, hopefully, maybe even 10-foot cords like they did with the GameCube controllers for Smash. But What Andre and I had noticed before recording earlier, actually, is that the controller ports on both of these systems, both the US version and the EU version, look like little plastic divots. They look like fakes. they don't look like you can actually plug anything in there.
On the front of the system, you mean? Like where they
right, on the front of the system. And so that begs the question, is that just something for this clip art, or does that actually signify that you plug the controllers in somewhere else, like maybe in the cart slot or something like that? Because we've never seen the ends of the controller cords either. We don't know if they're actually the original Super Nintendo style or if they're more aligned with the Wii and NES mini ports that we saw. So that's a big question on my mind, and if they are styled like the original Super Nintendo controllers, then it's possible you could hook up the mini tap or whatever and play Secret of Mana. Multi-tap, there we go.
Oh man, they make their own multi-tap accessory.
Hey, I knew the Super Nintendo mouse, so at least I got that.
Oh, and well, that just reminds me of another omission here, Mario Paint.
Oh, maybe that's why.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one, because looking at those controller ports, they do look like they're just there for show. And I'd be very surprised if they actually used the same port on the Super Nintendo anyway. So I'm starting to think. So I'm wondering if they just plug in through the back, which I'm hoping would indicate that the controller cords are longer than they were before, since they have to wrap around the front of the system now. If that's
a good point.
Certainly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But, you know, if that is true, it does speak to something with this system, which is that it's gonna look a little funky with the controllers not plugged in on the front. And as far as the retro appeal goes, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, I know. Well, the eject button's not going to work either, and that also disappoints me,
but maybe that'll be the home menu.
Yeah, actually, that could be. That'd be nice, actually. That'd be awesome. Holy crap.
Work.
Yeah.
I'm down with that, right? So actually, well, that's a good one. I hope that they have some way of getting to the home menu this time. Maybe through a soft reset with the, like, holding the trigger buttons and then the face buttons, maybe? On the controller, I mean?
I don't know. I feel like they would probably just do the same sort of thing, you know, either hit eject or reset.
That's too bad. But I'm gonna be wanting to switch between all of these games. Like, this is a stellar lineup here.
Yeah,
I'm looking at these games again. I actually realized there's another big game on here that I've actually never played. That's a first-party game. I've never played Super Punch-Out.
You know what?
I have no idea what that game even plays like.
You're right. I haven't either.
It's like Punch-Out.
Well, yeah, of course. I know. I'm sure. Thanks, Colin.
Anytime.
But yeah, I'm excited to actually play that because I know some of the characters because of the Punch-Out Wii remake.
Right.
Well, not remake, but you know the Punch-Out for Wii where they had there was a guy from Canada and there was like another character, Aaron Ryan, and I think both of them were from the SNES game. But yeah, I've never played that before, so that's something.
I think
I'm
Disco
really excited
Kid
to try
was from
out.
there too.
Oh no, Disco Kid's new. Disco Kid was the only new
Okay.
character. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the what's his name? I think it was Canadian.
Bear Hugger.
Bear Hugger. There we go.
Bear Hugger.
Yeah, he was from Super Punch Out. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, again, I'm just looking at the list here. Like these 21 games are just an extremely solid lineup. But at the same time, there are some gaps here. We already touched on it a little bit earlier, but I want to kind of circle back to that. And just see like what else you may have wanted to fill out this roster to make it maybe a more definitive Super NES Classic Edition. And I want to touch on again, I think you brought up, Roger, but the Donkey Kong trilogy. That to me is the most glaring omission here, just because they have Donkey Kong Country. Why not put 2 and 3 in there? But I almost feel like they are what to the Super Nintendo was, what the Mario trilogy was to the NES Classic.
I'd make the argument
I agree
against
with that.
3. I'd make the argument against 3, but I think 2 is definitely an omission.
Kong 3 is definitely no Mario 3, but as far as the trilogy goes, I do see what you're saying, Andre.
Right, I mean, yeah, Donkey Kong Country 2 is
In
one
the
of the
same
best
vein,
games.
Country 2 is miles ahead of Mario 2, so...
Yeah, I think exactly. I think Donkey Kong Country 3 is almost a Mario 2 of that trilogy, so...
Sure.
But yeah, I was surprised that that's not here. It makes me wonder if they just want to resell those down the line, maybe a new trilogy. Like, you know, maybe you can buy them as a trilogy pack on the Switch, perhaps, or something. Like, there has to be some reason why
like
2's missing.
Country collection.
The other thing that's kind of surprising on here to me, is considering we have both Secret of Mana and Final Fantasy III,
Right.
is the omission of one of my top 3 favorite games of all time. And ironically enough, 2 of them are also on this, Earthbound and Super Metroid. But Chrono Trigger.
I was gonna
I'm
mention
very
that.
shocked we don't have Chrono Trigger
That's
on
a
here.
big
I thought
one.
for sure that would be on here.
Yeah. I mean, I think probably what it is between Final Fantasy III, Secret of Mana, and Mario RPG, the Square licensing they're pushing it a little bit. I mean, I think they should have gone all the way, because what is Super Nintendo without Chrono Trigger? But
Right.
Do you think... So here's a question. Would you have preferred Chrono Trigger over Final Fantasy 3? Or 6?
No.
no, but I
probably
would have
not.
preferred it over Secret of Mana.
That's true.
Oh, no, actually,
I
no.
would have
No,
rather
no.
we just get all 3 though.
Yeah.
I would rather we have all 3, but when you mentioned that, I prefer having Secret of Mana in here just because, like, I want to play that multiplayer with someone, and this will give me an excuse to. Because otherwise I'm never going to, like on the previous Virtual Consoles. And then with Final Fantasy III, I actually don't own Final Fantasy III already. I know it's on Virtual Console, but I own Chrono Trigger 3 times. I own the Super Nintendo version, I own the one that was on Wii Virtual Console, and I own the DS remake. So that's actually okay. I don't mind that Chrono Trigger is in here. I just think, like, if we were making a definitive library, Pilot Wings, the 2 Donkey Kong Country games, that would have rounded it out to 25, too, had those games been included.
Pilot Wings would be a good one, but that's actually another classic game that I missed back in the day, so I wish that had been included here.
I feel like Pilot Wings hasn't aged very well. I don't know if it was actually very good to begin
Colin,
with,
you are triggering me all over the place. That game is fantastic to this day. I love Pilot Wings, yeah.
Yeah, what's your favorite thing about it? Name 3 good things.
Dude, that's so easy. The helicopter mission at the end of the game, the extraordinarily difficult helicopter mission, all the crazy little, like, music bits that sounded like jazz, but with this old, like, Super Nintendo sound chip, I loved, and I love the art style. I genuinely enjoy the art style. Yeah.
Wow.
I love Pilot Wings, guys.
So I have a little list of games that, like, I thought would round out the collection nicely. One thing that's missing from my additional list is Kirby's Dream Land 3. Which would have been a cool thing, but
it was kind of overlooked too back in the day. Like, I actually never played that much myself either.
The 9 games that I chose, though, if we were going to round this up to the same 30 that the NES Classic got, were Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3, Chrono Trigger, and then I would add SimCity, Stunt Race FX, ActRaiser, Tetris Attack, Super Mario All-Stars, and yes, Roger Pilot Wings.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so why were you saying that to me then?
Colin's like part of the beat, man.
After all I've done for you, Colin, come on, man. That's not cool.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it right there. Although, if I were to mix it up, I would throw in. I wish we had some Disney games here, like whether Aladdin or Lion King. Even though Lion King infuriated me as a kid, I think it would be awesome to get some of that representation. Especially with, like, the SNES Aladdin. Really got overlooked back in the day compared to the Genesis one. It's actually a solid game by itself.
That would have been a licensing nightmare, though, because they would have had to go through Capcom and Disney Interactive. And Disney Interactive right now is an absolute mess. So there's no way they would have been like, yeah, sure, put that in there.
A couple other missing games I would just throw out there. Killer Instinct, which makes sense, but that's owned by Microsoft now and Rare. The Ken Griffey games, which again will be a licensing nightmare, but those were extremely well-known games for the Super Nintendo, at least in the States. I mentioned Mario Paint, even though that's impossible with the mouse, basically. Sure. And then I had one more here. Oh, Yoshi's Cookie. Not a huge game, but it'd be a perfect filler title. Like, it was just a fun, pleasant game, and it had these little cute cutscenes with Mario and Yoshi between levels, so...
I mean, if we're looking for filler games, let's just go with Mario's Time Machine.
Oh, no, that's too far, Colin. Get out of here, Jesus.
I actually thought of another game, though, that I really wish was on here, and Konami has a game on this. They have Super Castlevania 4 on here, but I really wish this would have included Legend of the Mystical Ninja. Because that's already on Virtual Console, and they've re-released that a bunch of times in coordination with Nintendo, and that is a really fun game to play with 2-player co-op. Right. So that would have been perfect for this, so I am kind of surprised that's not on here either.
That's true. Joe and Mac, another cool co-op game. So, yeah, those are the omissions, I think, but still... I think for what you're paying here, at least in my opinion, what you're paying for here, you're getting a great value. Especially, like, I'm a little bit jealous of people who missed these games back in the day, because this is an amazing package right here. And I would love to be able to replay some of these games for the first time. But even if not for the first time, I'm still looking forward to going back to some of these games. And so what I'm wondering is, which games have you played that you're most looking forward to revisiting here? Because for me, I'm looking forward to going back to Yoshi's Island. I've never 100% in that game. I would love to be able to do that now. And Kirby Superstar, because that game is always amazing.
Yes.
How about you guys?
Well, for me, Donkey Kong Country is always brilliant. Earthbound's always great. Kirby Superstar, you nailed it. Link to the Past, I don't know if I'll actually play all the way through it on here, but it'll be fun to fiddle around with at least. Mega Man X is short enough that I'll definitely finish it. And Mario RPG, I've been dying to get back into this game.
So good!
Opportunity.
Where it all
so
started.
good. Yep. So good.
I feel lucky that I've actually never played it all the way through. That's that's something I really am looking forward to trying. But like for me, I know this is really weird. I have not played Link to the Past, I think, since the Wii era. I downloaded it on Wii Virtual Console because I'd never played it previously. Really loved it, and then never touched it again.
Oh, wow.
And I really don't want to like dig out my Wii to play it again, and that's the only other place I own it. I know they re-released it on Game Boy Advance, but I never got that version. So for me, I'm like really looking forward to playing through Link to the Past again. And yeah, we already talked about this a little bit, but Earthbound, Final Fantasy III, mostly the RPGs. I think like having Secret of Mana, Final Fantasy III, Earthbound, and Mario RPG in this alone, like those 4 games take dozens and dozens of hours to complete. So like,
yeah,
I'm so excited to try all those out again.
Anyone who plays through the full lineup of these games is going to get a ton of value for their money here.
Oh yeah.
Especially compared to the NES Classic, which was more focused on shorter experiences. I mean, games were tend to be shorter back in those days. Yeah, you're getting this is an amazing value just going by gameplay hours.
I own Super Metroid on 3 different systems, kind of like how I own Chrono Trigger on a lot of different systems. Right. But that's also something that I think is like timeless, and I really don't want to pull out my Wii U or my Wii to play it. Yep. So I am super excited to play through Super Metroid again too, especially after the announcement this is E3 with Samus Returns and with Metroid Prime 4. I think now is the perfect time to replay that game again.
It really is.
I want to bring this up, though, because we didn't talk about this, and this is something to me that feels like a filler game, and I totally understand that it's not, and I'm going to get a bunch of hate for saying this, but I think it's because it's been re-released so much, so frequently, that I feel like this, but it is also, don't get me wrong, what it is. It's a definitive game in the library. Totally.
I'm wondering it, too. Like, which one is it?
I think
Cut the build-up, Roger!
I'm surprised that Street Fighter. I mean, I'm not surprised Street Fighter 2 is in here.
Oh, okay.
But that to me does feel like a filler game, especially considering the fact that we just got Street Fighter 2 on the Switch again. And so for anybody who bought the Switch release, now it's like, well, now I'm going to have a version that actually has the little SNES controllers. I'm never going to play the Switch version. They can even find
the Super Nintendo Classic.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's another big question we haven't really touched on much is the supply and demand issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they will. The fact that this is actually releasing earlier in the year, I think they do want this as a big holiday. I think they want it throughout the holidays. I have a feeling we will see substantially more of these than we did the NES Classic. The NES Classic now almost feels like a test in hindsight, like they were testing the waters for how it would work for them. Yeah. Worked out extremely well for them.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah, and I think they're going to start delivering it now with the SNES Classic. And now here's a question: what do you expect next? Is the N64 Classic coming next, or do you think we might get like a Game Boy Classic or something?
I was gonna say, I think it's gonna be a Game Boy Advance. It's gonna be an SP loaded with games from all 3 generations of Game Boy.
Wow. That seems awesome.
That's bold. Yeah. Dang.
See, it sounds bold, but I've looked back at the Game Boy library, Game Boy Color library, without the childhood wonderment.
Right.
And there aren't a whole lot of great games on there.
Oh, you can find games.
I'm in agreement with Colin here.
I couldn't get a list of 30 Game Boy games between the original and color that I would pay something like $60, $80 on a classic edition for.
I also
think they should go for a trilogy of sorts, a Game Boy trilogy.
If they were going to make, though, a Game Boy Classic, I don't think they would be $80. I mean, you could get like a 2DS for $70 now? I feel like if they were going to make a Game Boy Classic, it would be like $40, and it would.
You're
probably
definitely
have
right. They
Link's
could do like a Game Boy
Awakening
Color thing.
Yeah, and I also don't think, even as beautiful as of an idea as that is, I really don't think if they're ever going to do a Game Boy Classic that they will do it where it's an SP with all 3 generations. I'm certain it would be like a Game Boy. It would look like a Game Boy. It would just have a backlight. And it would have Game Boy games, and it would go through from there. Yeah.
Well, the question is, would it be a portable? Like, would it have a screen built in, or would it just connect to your TV like these other ones here?
Oh, I would think it would have a screen built in.
Yeah, same.
But not $40 though. I don't think.
Why? 2DS is $70.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So what's?
I think that's Andre's point.
Oh, I guess I see where you're coming from. Yeah, yeah, I can't make an argument there, I guess, because I was going to say, like, it's going to come preloaded with a bunch of games, but all those games are pretty much already on the 2DS Virtual Console.
I can see it going either way. I could see them releasing a super cheap version that connects to your TV, like $40. Bam, that would make sense.
But then what's the point of doing a Game Boy?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I would want to be portable.
Kind of ruins the point, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be really cool, but that's going to add to the value because they have to add a better screen than the original Game Boy had. It has to be backlit. It can't be the same garbage thing they had originally. And that would actually.
So why'd we throw out the SP idea?
But I don't think they're going to combine all three systems into one.
Same,
I think
same.
if Nintendo
No,
gets-
yeah. I mean,
if
that's fair.
Yeah, if Nintendo can
I
sell
do think
three
it's a
separate
good
systems, they
solution to
will.
the screen issue, though.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean that was a frontlit screen originally. I guess it did. backlit.
Later models had a
It
backlight.
did. That's true.
Even though we're saying also, by the way, that like, yeah, 2DS is 70, so why would they make a Game Boy Classic 40? I'm just thinking, if they included all of the Pokemon games, if they had like
God.
Red and Blue and Gold and Silver on there,
Right.
plus they had, like, I think that alone, with an old classic Game Boy, and they released that like next holiday, because at this point, right, like I don't think any of us expect that Nintendo is going to make another dedicated handheld now that Pokemon is coming to Switch. It seems like now that is officially done. Switch is the one and done system, both the handheld and the console. So I think to maybe proposition the handheld market, they release, like you mentioned, a Game Boy Classic, and they include all of those classic games, like the old Pokemon games. They even have maybe include like a link cable or something with it, so if you want to play with a friend, you could like link up with your friend and trade Pokemon. They could include like the Mario platformers and Link's Awakening.
All the Zelda games. There's two
yeah.
others. Yeah.
Yeah, they could include the Oracle games as well, yeah. I do think that's likely. The more that we talk about it, I do think that would be what's coming next before an N64 Classic.
The Kirby games, Tetris.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of garbage on the system, but there were a lot of really good games too. And I think a lot of them that were overlooked, especially by modern gamers. Like there's a ton of gamers now, like you, Colin, that probably didn't grow up with a Game Boy.
Right. I mean, the way I sort of see it, the biggest question is what they would do with re-releasing Pokemon games, because we know that they've been sort of hesitant to do that in the past.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think if they release basically all the Game Boy Pokemon games, and that includes Game Boy Color. So, like, let's say hypothetically they do a Game Boy Classic, and it's got a color screen. Game Boy games are in the green and black, and Game Boy Color games are, you know, as they would have normally appeared. If we get Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, Silver, and Crystal on this thing, then yeah, they definitely don't need to go all the way and do Advance. You know, they can pile in Kirby's and Zeldas and Marios and get a really good system there.
And you're thinking too small in the realm of Pokemon too, because there's two amazing Pokemon games that are on that system.
Puzzle
that are not
Challenge?
Puzzle. I forgot about that's 3. Never mind. Puzzle Challenge, Pokemon Pinball, the original Pokemon Pinball.
Oh, Pinball's great.
And the Pokemon trading card game.
I was gonna
which
mention
to this day has some of the best
game
soundtracks of any of the Game Boy
absolutely
games.
brilliant.
Yes.
I was so hooked on that game. I actually bought it like 15 years after it came out. And
Plus-
so I played
Dude,
it
the
only in
Wario
the past-
Lands, the
What?
Wario Land games, like
Wario
Metroid
Land?
2, dude.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Now here's a
Good
real
stuff.
question. When are they releasing the Virtual Boy Classic Edition?
Oh my god.
But okay, let's say they don't do a Game Boy Classic, because
Sure.
I mean I would love for them to. I don't know if they will. That would mean
Sure.
the N64 Classic has to be next. What would,
Well, if anything's next.
do you think there will be a next one? I think there will be. I think if not Game Boy, I think it's definitely N64 Classic for sure.
I think the way that we've seen the price scale with the Super Nintendo Classic, at the same time as the game quantity scales down,
$99?
I don't know if they'll push a Nintendo 64 Classic just yet.
A
maybe
$99
not next year.
64 Classic with 4 controller ports and like you built 15 games built in.
If it's got 64 games, sign me up. For $100 though, Nintendo
Yeah.
64 in
I'm
2018.
with Colin on
Alright.
this. I actually think $100 for an N64 Classic right now is not good.
I say
I
just
don't
throw
think
them
they
on
should do
Virtual
that.
Console.
Either put them on Virtual Console or release it like 2 years from now. I think give it just
Yeah.
a little bit more time and go to Game Boy first. Because I actually
Yeah.
think Game Boy would be a bigger seller.
I think so too.
It definitely would.
But
Nintendo
I mean, like-
64 did not sell nearly as well as Super Nintendo did. So there's already that prospect of like the nostalgia grab is so much smaller than it ever would have been for NES or SNES.
You're forgetting 64 was huge in colleges and on school
Sure.
campuses.
But
Like,
I also
people-
think that with the 64, they wouldn't have to, but I think they would need to have it where you could play 4 players. So you would need USBs, and even if it came with 2, you should be able to like take the other 2 and then plug them in and play 4-player Mario Kart 64 for sure. But I think the other thing too is N64's library is also a licensing nightmare because that was the heyday of
Yeah.
Rare,
and so
yeah.
they would fully need to work with Microsoft to actually get a definitive library. Now, like, there's good things. There's Paper Mario, the 2 Zelda games, even the Mario sports games like Mario Tennis and Mario Golf, Smash Brothers,
Right.
Pokemon Snap. There's a lot of good stuff on there, but I actually do think, like, if they wanted to go all out, they would need to work with Microsoft on it to get all those rare games.
I disagree. I agree in the sense that they wanted to go all out. Absolutely, that's not going to happen, and I think they could support it with their own library. I mean, back in the day, Rare was essential to the system, of course. I'm not disagreeing there.
Yeah.
But I think they could release a system without that support at all, even though it would be amazing to have, and just focus on the multiplayer games that Nintendo made so well themselves, like Mario Kart, Mario Party, Mario Tennis, Mario Golf, as you guys mentioned. Like, there's so much here, and then Pokemon Snap,
and it's all Mario.
Yeah, it is all,
right.
Actually, that's true. Yeah, it is all Mario. Yeah, we would be missing GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, unfortunately.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, why would you want to release that without GoldenEye?
Right,
That's
and especially
true.
if you're talking about getting this thing big on college campuses, it's not gonna. Without GoldenEye, it's not gonna be the same.
That's true. GoldenEye was responsible for that. So, all right. Well, you guys have any final thoughts at all about anything we discussed, whether regarding the SNES Classic Edition or anything else?
I only thought of one other game that we kind of missed in terms of SNES classics that aren't on here that I think would have been pretty easy to put in. I'm kind of surprised Harvest Moon isn't in here.
Oh, hey!
Oh, wow, you're right. That is one. I don't know how I missed that. That's one of my favorite games. That's actually what inspired me to run my own business. Harvest Moon was
really
it back in the day. Yeah, I loved running a farm. Hell yeah, I want to run my own business growing up. And now I do. So that hurts.
Sorry.
And they haven't done anything with that game besides re-releasing it on Wii Virtual Console.
Right. Well, it was on Wii Virtual Console too, I'm pretty sure, wasn't it?
It might have been, I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. That can't.
All the more reason that it should be on here, though, if that's the case.
Absolutely.
Right.
I agree. Wow.
Yeah.
That and SimCity, those would have been two really good games to add, actually.
Yeah, SimCity was a really great Super Nintendo game.
It was. SimCity 2000, not so much. SimCity, though, yeah. And
Was
SimCity,
that on Super Nintendo?
It was. It was one of the last games that
really?
came to it, yeah.
Huh.
And SimCity did have the Mario crossover things. It had Mr. Right, who later appeared in Link's Awakening. And it
Smash
had
Brothers.
Bowser.
And Smash,
Brothers, how could I forget? And then also, Bowser would come and storm through your city, just wrecking everything.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was fun. All right. Anything else from you, Colin, at all, or any final points?
No, I think that's about it.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps up for us here. So, Roger, where can people find you at?
You can find me at RogerSpace on YouTube, on Twitter, on Twitch, and on Instagram, and I also have a secondary channel, Game & Vlog, where I upload gameplay of Nintendo stuff. But I just uploaded a Mario Odyssey direct feed footage video to my main channel, RogerSpace, so go check that out.
Nice. And how do you, Colin?
Yeah, you can find me on Gamnesia.com and on Twitter at Colin McIsaac. That's ColinMciSaac.
All right, and of course, make sure to stay tuned to GameXplain for lots more on the SNES Classic once we find out more, and everything else Nintendo as well. Catch you guys later. Bye.
Bye!
Bye!